Welcome to Back Talk, the premier podcast from successful Black Parenting Magazine, featuring in-depth conversations and expert insights on crucial topics for Black families. We are ranked one of the top 4 Black family podcasts on FeedSpot. I'm your host, Janice Robinson-Celeste. Now, what if the way we were raised is what we accepted as normal? Because sometimes in some families, it just isn't. And what if it was actually blocking our children's success? Are we passing down love or survival skills disguised as parenting? Stay tuned and we'll be right back and we're going to talk about this.
This is Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning into Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, your go-to podcast talk show for parents. We are live, and you can ask questions by posting in the comment section of our Facebook and YouTube, but do it early. Share our podcast with your friends. Please shout it out to your followers because sharing is truly caring. And don't forget to use hashtag Backtalk when you post, because I like to go into like Instagram or wherever and just see what Backtalk is like trending or doing. And, I get really disappointed. I don't see a lot. So use hashtag Backtalk. Thank you so much. So I want to welcome Bolanle. Oh my God, do not want to mess your name up. Bolanle. And I'm going to have you say your last name for me. So make sure everybody gets it right.
Oh, thank you so much, Janice. My name is Bolanle Ambonisye.
Ambonisye. It's so pretty and just rolls off your tongue so nicely. Bolanle. I love that. I know it's Bolanle. I got tongue tied because I'm all out of breath. So I apologize. I am not into messing up people's names. I know how important your name is to you and to everybody else. So thank you.
I know you are that way, and I appreciate that spirit of willingness and desire to make sure we get our names correct. So I appreciate
Absolutely. That. And it's so pretty. What is the background of your name?
Oh, well, Bolanle, it comes from West Africa. It's actually a pretty popular Nigerian name, and it means wealth of the house. Whoop. And depending on where I am, if I'm around Nigerians and I say my name is Bolanle, then someone in their family is named Bolanle. Oh, that's my mother's name. Oh, that's my aunt's name. That kind of thing.
That's so pretty. Now, what about your last name? Because that's unique too.
Ambonisye comes from East Africa. It comes from Tanzania, the Nyakyusa people in Tanzania, and it means God has rewarded me.
Well, I did a while back, decades ago, I wrote a book with Simon & Schuster, and it was about baby naming ceremonies, actually all kinds of baby ceremonies. I went to Africa to look at the baby naming ceremony up close and personal, and your name is everything. So parents, if you're listening, whatever you name your child, I can attest to this personally, even though my name is Janice, sounds boring, plain, but there's a Greek god named Janus, Janus, the male version of it. And the meaning means God of open doors. And I swear to God, that led my whole life. Like every time this felt like a door shut, another one opened for me and bridged me over to the next thing so I didn't fall on my face. And I keep that in mind. My name is the God of open doors. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. So what your name means to you and what you name your child is so important. It's so important. So thank you for sharing that with us.
It really is. Thank you. And speaking on that around naming ceremonies, it's different on the continent where when a child is born, you wait until the child is born until you give them a name. You don't name the child before the child is born. And we tend to do that. Oh, yeah, I'm going to have a baby. His boy is going to name, but the reason why we wait until after the child is born is so we can look at the child and get to know the child and see their personality. Of course, we have day names, like to say what day of the week you're born on and whether or not you're male or female. Like my first name is Aquia. Aquia means born on a Wednesday. I'm a girl born on a Wednesday. Okay. But along with your day name, your second name speaks to your personality. It speaks to the hopes that the parents have for you. It speaks to what was happening around the time the child was born. There's all different kinds of wonderful things that we do around names and naming.
Well, you're here today to educate our audience, which you just did, but you're also here to educate parents on how to parent smarter and not harder. So if you guys out there, you tired right now, if you're tired, you need to listen to this podcast to the end because we're going to talk to you about that. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. Now tell our audience all about you and what it is that you do.
Oh, well, thank you. Once again, my name is Bolanle Ambonisye, and I had an adult education and training company called You and I Rise. That's it, You and I Rise. And the purpose of it is to skyrocket Black child success. And we do that by facilitating trainings for adults, for parents, for teachers, for caregivers, whoever interacts with children. And because it's our responsibility as adults to create the environment that our children need to thrive. And so our trainings and our workshops are adult training for that purpose. And with part of that is and the foundation of You and I Rise is parenting education. So all of the other trainings grew out of the parenting education and workshop.
No, that's fantastic. I'm glad you said that. I was going to say, what about the parent ed part? Because that's really important. And
Yeah.
I just want to say, too, for the people who tune in and are seeing our replay and it says, oh, it looks a little different over in your studio today, Janice. Well, show must go on. That's my motto. So it's not mine, but, it works. I have to use my blue background because plan A and plan B failed me today. Like plan A, I don't know what's going on with AirPlay, so I could not get our logo up on our television behind us. Plan B, I have a neon sign that I've been dying to use, and I tried to use that, and it's battery operated. Of course, all the batteries are dead. First time I use it, no batteries available. I have 8 AAA batteries, but I don't have 8 AA batteries. So now we're back to the blue screen. So I just want you guys to know, you're like, what's going on over there? So if you notice, you probably didn't even notice, but just to give you some insight and some behind the scenes knowledge. All right. Our next question that we ask everybody that comes on is an icebreaker. And it's just, what one thing about you that you can tell us that most people don't know about you?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that in general, I tend to present as rather upbeat and optimistic and, upbeat, having a good time, come with a positive spirit. But underneath, I am angry all the time.
You're angry.
Did you see the Avengers movie when it was close to the end and David Banner, they were telling him, hey, it's time for you to change into the Hulk. Because they had been prodding him the whole movie, like, come on, are you going to change? Are you going to change? And he was like, no, he had it under control. And they said, well, it's time for you to get angry. It's at the end of he's like, it's time for you to get angry. He said, see, that's my secret. I'm always angry. And then he turned around. And by the time he turned around like this, he was already the Hulk. He had transitioned that quickly. And I was like, yes!
You related to that.
Yes, just because of what we deal with, as Black people and as Black parents, it's right there all the time.
It's always there.
And I use it. I do use it. I channel it.
I do.
But yeah, it's there.
I understand 100%, 110%, because I had that happen yesterday with a comment on, I try not to engage with these people that just have just the ignorance that they don't even try to fix.
Right.
But I kind of feel like it's my destiny to fight the ignorance sometimes, or to make them think or challenge them a bit. And I don't know why I cannot not engage, but one of the things, I said something that wasn't really very nice, and I'm sure you guys can find out. I don't really care even. I said what I said. But I'm always, I told a woman, I was about to say to her, after she commented, she said something like, you didn't have to be so mean. I'm like, oh, now you want to play victim? Because that's
yes,
right? The predictable victim. And I said, "What?" And I was about to say, but she signed off, and it didn't. The comment didn't go. But I was about to say, I carry the anger and weight of all my ancestors on my back.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, "Oh, slavery was so long ago, you don't deserve reparations," whatever, I'm like, you don't understand. We still carry that anger for not from far off ancestors, but from my mom and dad
That's right.
who had to go through Jim Crow. From all and everybody before them. My grandmother, who I knew, who was born at the end of slavery, was a sharecropper, didn't get paid hardly anything. Could not. My grandmother, who could not read because her family was never allowed to read. All that anger is below the surface. And
That's right.
you all are lucky, like it's been said many times, that we're not out for revenge. We're just out to be able to show what we can do for you to leave us alone and get a
Yes.
fair shot. That's
Mm-hmm.
all we want. That's all we want. But yes, and I know this is a whole different topic than we had planned, but it's necessary.
It is necessary because we're
It's
all dealing with it. And
Mhm.
it does show up in our parenting.
It really does.
It
It
does.
really does. It
Mm-hmm.
really does.
It
So
does.
talk about that a little bit. How does it show up in our parenting?
Well, because of the way we were parented and the conditions, the conditions that we are born into, that we rarely take into account. We there's a saying that the fish is the last to discover the water.
Yes.
So you're born into this environment, and we believe that this is just the way that it is, and the things that happened, the way I was raised, we're thinking that the way I was raised is, I either agree with what the way I was parented or I disagree. And depending on how I was raised, I will either do what my parents did or I'll do opposite from what my parents did if I don't like what they did. And I'm going to make sure that they know that I don't like what they did, or and we, if we're not taking the rest of the environment into account, then we'll believe that our parents are the ones at fault.
Mm-hmm.
We'll believe that it's their fault, but we don't know how our parents were parented. We don't know the conditions around that. We don't know about our parents before that. And, because as when we grow up, everyone says, you know what, when I have my children, I'm going to do this thing differently,
Mm-hmm.
but and if we're lucky, we will get conscious, intentional, uh, empowering information that will allow us to break cycles, that will allow us to break negative patterns. But sometimes you realize as you grow older that, oh, what my parent did was correct, but we don't know which one it is
Right.
until we actually get some more objective, more empowering information around parenting.
Right. We don't know if what they did was right or necessarily wrong until you see other things and you get out in the world. Because I know I parent totally differently than my mom and dad did, and
Mm-hmm.
my daughters are parenting differently than I did. So it's changing. That I don't see like the generational curses transferring in our family. Thank goodness, because some of them were horrible. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
I read recently that trauma all the way back from generations ago, we were just talking about slavery even, that trauma lives in our DNA, like scientific proof. So that
Mm-hmm.
anger that we just talked about that lays beneath the surface is justified by science, honestly, because it lives in our DNA and because it still stays with us. I still believe that, our reparations are due. Besides, I'm here to collect from my ancestors. So that's a whole different topic again. But but my ancestors, everything I do, I'm like, this is a win for you. I know you couldn't see it, but I'm here to everything for me leads with that. So, but
Indeed.
yeah, so you're absolutely right. But when you were going to say something about that,
I can't remember it.
that's okay. I'm the same way. I'm the
Right.
same way. I have to
Right.
have my notes, so I get
Mhm.
you. But um, you say we adults are what's wrong with children, and that's a really bold statement, right? Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. Uh, you know, uh, Whenever we get together in groups as adults, we inevitably end up talking about our children.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, while we are you know, we already know that we love our children, but the things we say,
Mhm.
if you listen to the things we say, it doesn't really sound like that. You know, we complain about children being disrespectful. We complain about children being uh, uh, lazy and all kind of other things, and we don't take into account the fact that we are the ones raising them. You know, we act as if our children uh, behave the way they behave, and it's in a vacuum that we want to uh, criticize them for things that they don't know, but that we haven't taught them. You know, like respect is a really, you know, it's a really popular buzzword in our community about our children being disrespectful, but we haven't taught them what respect is,
Mm.
and we haven't modeled respect very well a lot of times, you know. And so we don't take into account our example, and we don't take into account what we as adults allow our children to be exposed to, and what we do with them or to them, and that kind of thing, and the impact that that makes. And so children are doing what children have always done, which is copy adults.
Yeah.
This is no different. What we're experiencing now is no different. It's just that when, you know, you've mentioned how in your family you were able to interrupt generational curses,
Mhm.
and that's wonderful. And there are many parents, many families where generational curses continue, but they don't just go from one generation to the next. With us as Black people, I'll talk about Black people in particular, but we tend to take things to another level.
That's what we're talking about.
It doesn't just stay the same. The curse doesn't just jump from this parent to this
Yep.
child and it stay the same. No, we got to we move it to another level.
Mhm. Yep.
Just like the great things that we do.
Yeah.
You know, we take it to another level. Basketball, gymnastics, golf, you know, all
Boom.
the things that, you know, all of the things that the world look at us for, our all the other things culturally, our dance, you know, we're always on the cutting edge. We're always taking things to another level. And the same thing is true regarding our dysfunction.
Mhm.
Take it to another level if we do not interrupt it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's why I say give us a chance. We'll excel. We're
That's
gonna
right.
do well at it. But,
Mhm.
so but you've talked about respect. I just want to comment on that a bit because I was a high school teacher, and one of the things I've noticed right away is that the kids today, all the kids from different backgrounds, you don't automatically get respect. Like back in the day, you were expected to just automatically respect everybody, respect your elders, respect it. Today, the kids don't give you. You have to earn it.
That's right.
You have to earn it. And I
Mhm.
get parents, and I know they're out there right now saying, I ain't earning nothing. You respect me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, your kids might, because they might be scared of you, or they might just, maybe they see what respect looks like in your household. But these kids out here, you have to earn their respect. And that's
Right.
what I found different.
And we're the ones who did that. You know, we're the ones who in, who gave our children that message. You know, because there's a part in, you know, like when I'm facilitating parenting, our parent workshops, tapping our parental power, we talk about the breakdown of community. You know, it used to be that we parents were pretty much on the same wavelength in terms of what we expected from our children, and we supported one another in that expectation, and we reinforced one another. We backed, you know, we backed each other up and that kind of thing. But then there was a part where uh, I'm not sure, it might be my generation of parents, those of us born in the 60s and 70s. I'm not sure if it happened with this our generation of parents or the ones before it. Somewhere in between there, it became, don't talk to my child. No, you.
Yes.
I'm the one who disciplines my child. You
Mhm.
don't say nothing to my child. We're the ones who created that.
Right. I
Where,
think it's our generation because I remember people could talk to me as a child and tell me and go could tell my parents, but it was
right?
just starting to ease up then. But
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And so we created that division in the community, and where people can't say anything or should or are afraid to say something, afraid to correct children's behavior. And So that, can you understand how us doing that sets the stage for what we're experiencing today?
Oh yeah, I can, but I also see another side of that too, because there's so many people who are not okay up in here
Mm-hmm.
who can hurt your child. So you prefer to have the control over that, even though we still believe, it takes a village to raise a child. You gotta be careful of the villagers that you are letting care for your kid too,
Yes.
and talk to your kid and influence your child. So we're in a different world, and I think a lot of that also has to do with all the changes from the internet to mental health care on. I mean, it's a multifaceted problem that really was not, I don't think it was as bad back then. Not that we can track it as much, but we had priests to talk to, preachers to talk to. We had neighbors to talk to. We can go to the fence and holler over and tell them our problems. We could say that. But today, if you tell somebody, look, I'm having a horrible, no good, terrible, bad day, I don't want that negativity in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You go over there with that. They
That's
don't have
right.
time or space for us. So now the mental health care that we have, of course, is getting cut as we speak. But we don't have all that, so we have to be careful too who the villagers are that are raising
I,
our
appre-
children.
I appreciate that you said that, because what we're talking about here, because you and I, we're in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And what is needed is us as parents deciding that that is enough of a priority for us to begin our conversations around that, because honestly we can't parent by ourselves,
Mm-mm.
you know. So we don't realize the ways that we cut off our support,
Right.
and but at the same time bringing in the cautious part that you're talking about, that's the reason for that, gives all the more need for us to be able to come together and have these kinds of discussions so that we can be in agreement about what constitutes being able to say something to our children versus not, or whatever, all of the any of the things that we believe to be important enough for us to be able to work together to provide what our children need. That's something that is missing, is us working together to provide what our children need. I'm over here in my house trying to cover all of my children's needs. You're in your house trying to cover all your children's needs, and everyone's doing the same thing in their own individual silos. And as long as we're doing that, we're all going to be struggling, running ragged, running ourselves ragged, trying to be everything.
Mm-hmm. And we are. We're tired. If you're
Yeah.
tired, put down that. Just write down tired in your comments. Tired, because I know you wake up tired. So you're right. We do need help. You can't parent alone, which is important to say. That's why I think these like parent education classes, especially ones that are culturally kind of rounded, are really important. What you're doing, what we're doing with the Black Parenting Academy. If you guys don't know about that, please go and check it out. BlackParentingAcademy.com. Also, you can talk about what you're doing. And when we get to that, I'm gonna tell everybody about it at the end, and you can tell them where to find your classes, etc. But you have something else that just launched that we want to talk about soon too. Let me get through these questions so we can get to that.
Sure.
But what are some of the most common generational habits, since we're talking about that, or parenting patterns that you see that are holding Black families back? And then how do we begin to break those?
Um, I'll start with the first pattern that I see, that I've noticed, is our our concept of discipline.
Ooh, that's a
You
big
know,
one.
we first of all, we misuse the word discipline to mean punish or
Mm-hmm.
to whoop and that kind of thing. I was going to say spank, but to me, spanking is a little different from whooping. I think
Mm-hmm.
about spank as a, like that, but no, I'm talking about, like
The
wholesale
belt
whooping.
hitting, yeah, going off.
Right.
Yeah.
And we tend to over rely on punishing our children, even if it's not a whipping, we make sure that there's a difference between correcting behavior. There's a difference between consequences and punishment. We tend to over rely on punishing our children for doing things that we consider to be wrong, instead of teaching them, which is really what the word discipline really means, to teach. And so when you think about that, because when you think about punishing versus teaching, when are we teaching our children? We're teaching them all the time. We're teaching them with everything that we say and do. But when it comes to behavior that we're trying to correct, then we seem to over rely on whipping or some type of way for the child to hurt, be it, some kind of physical torture type thing, where you stand with your hands up. And I've done those things, I've done those things. Like I've seen on Facebook, people doing the Jodeci jump now, having the children do the Jodeci jump, talk about, tell me what
Jodeci jump.
Tell me what you
Not the Jodeci jump.
And they do that for the whole song or that kind of thing. The problem is that it's not really related to whatever the problem is. And so when it comes to our children making mistakes, our responsibility is to teach them about the mistake, why it's wrong or why it's not in their best interest, not simply to be mad at them and then punish them for doing the thing. We still need to teach. We still need to.
Sorry.
That's
my mother's the only one and my daughters that can get through on my phone when it's muted. That's it. Emergency contact. So she knows I'm on a broadcast. She's just not thinking. But go ahead.
And it's our responsibility to prepare them for life, because they won't always be around. We won't always be around when they're making mistakes. So it's our job to equip them with information so that they can make wise decisions, make informed decisions based on likely outcomes, likely consequences. So we could, if a child is lying or something like that, we could, whoop them for lying, but whipping and lying don't really correlate to each other.
Right. The crime doesn't meet the punishment.
Right. And so it would be more helpful if we taught them about the consequences of lying. And I'm not opposed to, setting up, I think about it like setting up scenarios where they can feel the effect of it, like feel the impact of lying. So it's like, oh, I don't like it when people lie to me. Okay, then don't lie to other people, that kind of thing.
Right. We have Falami. She posted tired her cute baby there. Look at that. And guys, I just want to say, you like Falami, you can, or Felicity, she goes by, you can to get your comment or question on air. You just have to post it under our Facebook page in the comment section, or if you're on YouTube and watching this, you can just post it in the comments there. It takes a second to come over, so do it early, and I will make sure that we put your question or comment up on air. So I'm gonna just put that there, so you can, that's me, you can post your questions, and you can see it just like that. So, all right. So let's go back let's not go back. Let's go ahead. Let's move forward. But you have something called the TOPP TOPP manual that helps parents move from just reacting intentionally to designing the future of their family, which is parenting smarter. You got to explain that, because what is a TOPP? What is this? What is it?
Well, the TOPP manual is what I use when I'm facilitating the Tapping Our Parental Power workshop. That's what TOPP stands for, Tapping Our Parental Power. And I use that when I'm facilitating the 24-hour workshop. And what has happened with that manual now is, well, let me tell you what because while facilitating the workshop, parents would say, hey, can I get a copy of this manual so I could give it to, my sister or one of my friends? I want to buy a copy, that kind of thing. But I was unable to sell them the copy because that manual has to be facilitated. I have to, there are prompts and that kind of thing. There are discussions that we have in order for them to have the information they need to fill out the manual, because the manual itself, it constitutes their parenting plan, because that's what we do in the workshops. We come together, we go through exercises, complete exercises, and participate in discussions that allow us to approach parenting in a more proactive manner, and be able to create plans for ourselves, our parenting plan based on our unique personalities, our unique family conditions, and that kind of thing. So that's the purpose of the manual. What we've done with the manual, because there were people in the workshop who asked to get a manual for someone else who wasn't in the workshop, I couldn't sell the manual. So what I ended up doing was I took the hint, because I would just say, well, no, I don't sell it, and leave it like that, but then it took a while for me to say, hey, okay, you need to you need to finish it and put it into a form that can be sold, and so that's what I did. And that's what the name of the book is, Are These Really My Kids? And so it's the 24-hour workshop into a standalone book that any parent can then invest in to create a parenting plan for their families.
Right. And I'm going to take us to the side so you can see it. You guys can check out the book right now. That's the cover of the book. Are These Really My Kids?
Yes, tapping into my purpose, power, and patience as a parent.
There you go. There you go. And where can they get that?
Oh, I can post the link. What's going on is we're still in the final stages of publishing, and it'll be available August 1st. Now, I will have a few copies before then, but my official launch date is August 1st, and I can.
You can just put it down, but you can send me the link, and I'll make sure that we put it in the description and let them know. Will they be able to pre-order it?
Yes.
Okay. And that doesn't start till August, the pre-order, or?
Well, no, we can pre-order now. That's what the official launch starts August 1st. And so I'll have the books before then, but that's the actual launch.
Okay.
But yes,
Well, congratulations on that. It's always great to see your work come to fruition like that. And that was brilliant of you to do.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you also teach a model called You and I Rise, the letter U, ampersand I, Rise. What is that, and how does it transform parent-child relationships?
Well, the name of the model is the You and I Rise relationship and productivity model. And what it is it's a suggested way of behaving with ourselves, just in our everyday life and living, that builds trust between us as individuals, and between us and our children, between us and our spouses, really between any people who you're interacting with. So it begins, it's a 4-part model, and it's in the shape of a what do you call that? Triangle. Mm-hmm. It's in the shape of a triangle, and it begins with willingness. It starts with willingness, and if there's willingness, then we can move to the next step. If there's not willingness, then we can't. There's no need to go any further. So if you ask me, okay, well, I don't know, willingness to do what? The first step is willingness to be self-aware. They have to be willing to know where my beliefs, my attitudes, my behaviors, my emotions, where they come from. Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I do what I do? Why do I feel what I feel? I have to first be willing to do that, to look at myself. Right. And then the next part is to be able to account for that, be able to explain that to people. So me knowing it myself is one thing, but willingness to explain it to someone else, because we do impact one another, that's another thing. And, we hear a lot in society talk about, oh, we need to hold these people accountable, or you're unwilling to be accountable, and that kind of thing. I don't think we talk enough about what that word means, what accountability means. And really, the root word, when you're talking about accountability, it just means to explain. That's the root of it, to
Mm.
explain. If you're willing to explain why you do what you do, that is being accountable.
Mm.
But there's a lot of people who are unwilling to explain. And that, as long as there's unwillingness, again, you can't do anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
If there's unwillingness, you can't go any further. So first is willingness to be self-aware, to know where your stuff comes from, and then willingness to explain yourself.
Right. But don't you need like therapy sometimes? People can't always just be introspective like that. A lot of people need to do their shadow work and figure out what it is that and where it comes from. And I noticed that like in our community, especially, they don't want to go get therapy to figure it out. Especially because they've not figured it out for decades. A lot of them, I'm thinking of one person in particular right now, but there's like they have not figured it out.
I appreciate that you said that, but I wasn't
Mhm.
even going as far as therapy. I'm talking
Yeah,
about just regular everyday interaction.
really.
Although you're correct, you're entirely correct
Mhm.
about that, about the need for therapy. Because we all, especially given our history as a people,
Mhm.
part of the reason we continue uh, to the reason why we continue to perpetuate our generational curses and perpetuate dysfunction and that kind of thing is because of an unwillingness to go to therapy and that kind of thing. But even before getting to therapy, there has to be a willingness to just look at ourselves, to just look. And some people aren't willing. And if you're not willing, then there's not a whole lot you can do. But if you are willing, then starting with I call it the babe, our our beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and emotions, being willing to look at that, and then being willing to explain that to somebody else.
Yes,
And I'm
absolutely.
talking about just the surface stuff. I haven't
Right.
even,
Yeah, and get deep in there. Okay. No,
right.
I think it's good. I know people that can't even see themselves on the surface for whatever the reason is. Some of them have some disorders probably that need to be diagnosed, but
Well, when you
they
think
can't
about,
see they do any wrong. So you have people out there
Mhm.
like that, you know.
Yeah,
So
there's a thing about a lot of times it really has to do with, because I'm thinking about the feelings that are under that, and that has to do with things like embarrassment or
mhm,
shame or feeling guilty and that kind of thing. And so a person may not want to say it because of the way that they feel about it, because of the judgment that they have about it. And even if it paints you in an unfavorable light, whatever the answer is understandable. It's a human thing.
mhm,
It's a human thing. Whatever we've gone through, everything we've gone through is human.
yeah,
We've had human experiences, but we've been made to feel ashamed. We've been made to feel embarrassed about things that happen to people every day.
yeah,
We have been made to believe that we're supposed to be perfect, like we're not supposed to make mistakes and that kind of thing. And that's just not possible if you're alive. And
yeah,
and nowhere is it more important to be as realistic and realistically human as in when we're parenting. You
right,
know, we make the mistake of thinking that we must appear perfect in the eyes of our children, or we must appear that we uh, that every decision that we've made was the right decision, that kind of thing in front of our children, and that in and of itself is a mistake.
okay, it is, and I think it's good for your kids to see you make mistakes and you explain how you either corrected or dealt with it, so
They
they
see
can
us
learn.
making mistakes. They
Yeah,
see us make
they
mistakes.
do, they
Now,
do, but how you deal with it.
whether or not we admit that, or whether or not we account, because that's
Yeah,
that
that's true.
explaining part. Whether or
Mhm.
not we explain that, that, yeah, I made a mistake. I thought this was going to have this outcome, but it didn't have this
I love
outcome.
that.
Or I was upset and I did this and I reacted instead of, I did a knee jerk reaction and that was a mistake, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because it teaches our children.
Exactly. And I think it's okay for parents to apologize too, especially if it affects the child. So, um,
Otherwise, how are our children going to learn to apologize if we don't apologize?
right. We can't just make them do it when they do something wrong. It goes
Right.
both ways. It really does.
Right. It comes down to us as being the example.
Yeah.
And that's part of the beauty of what we do in our Tapping Our Parental Power workshops, that the parent will get to experience if they were to purchase the book. Are these really my kids? Is that you get to do it, get to go deeper with yourself, because really it's about the goals that you have for your children. It's about bringing about the atmosphere, the energy, the relationship that you want to have between you and your children, and being very intentional about bringing that about. So you don't have to guess about how to do that. You don't have to engage in trial and error. You can have accurate information and immediately implementable tools that make it happen, just because that's what happens when you do something intentionally. You do it with the awareness and you do it with intention. It happens.
Hmm. It does. Now, I found this interesting about your manual is that sex education and mate selection are in the manual, which many parenting books avoid. Most of them probably do. So, why was that important for you to include, and how should parents approach these conversations?
It's important because puberty is inevitable. It is not something that you can control. You cannot stop it. It is a freight train.
Mhm.
and so, we really have to ask ourselves, where do we want to be? Do we want to be on our children's side while and helping our child to navigate this part of life that is going to be that's going to be a part of their life for the rest of their lives? Do we want to be on their side while they're getting to know this and navigate this? Or
Mhm.
do we want to be an obstacle to them being able to navigate it successfully in a healthy manner? Which do we want to do?
Mhm.
So it allows us to say, okay, well, how do I want, if I had my way, under what circumstances would I want my children to get married? Under what circumstances would I want my children to have sex? Under what circumstances would I want my children to have children? To think about those things. And it's not as if, and being able to write those down, it gives us a way to begin the conversation with our children. And really, even before that, because it does have places for that, for us to think about that. Before that, we're talking about who they are as people and helping our children as people to get to know themselves, like what our children like, what they don't like, what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they wish they could do better, what things that they would like to do, what problems do they see in the world that they would like to fix. As the more we can get our children grounded in themselves, then and being able to help them to discover their purpose, then our children are more grounded and are able to see other people in a more accurate light. So if my children are grounded in themselves and they're doing things that they like to do, and they're just like us, if we're if I like to do karaoke, and I do,
Oh, me too.
do karaoke, I'm going to be in the company of other people who like to do karaoke, right?
That's why we get along.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And so when you're among people who are doing the things, same kind of things that you enjoy, then you're likely to connect with somebody with whom you have more things in common, and uh, you know, so I'm saying all this to say, if we help our children to learn themselves, then they'll be in a better position to select someone who complements them,
Oh,
as opposed to it being because our children will see more thing hold other things more valuable, like character,
mhm.
honesty, that kind of thing. And so they won't be so swayed by, oh, he got pretty eyes. Oh, he got a car. Oh, her booty big. That kind of stuff. We'll be able to look more into what's under the surface. When our children are pursuing their goals, they'll be more likely to connect to someone else who is also pursuing goals,
Yeah.
or someone who is a complement and not putting roadblocks in front of their ability to attain their goals. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you use those examples because we parents, we know we heard that before. So we heard those before. And, or you may have been the teenager that said those things too. So
Right.
it's very, very familiar. We're starting to run out of time, but quickly for parents who might feel overwhelmed and discouraged, maybe they didn't grow up with great examples. What's the first step they can take today to become an equipped parent and do better? I mean, we're all doing the best we can, but when I say do
Right.
better, just for growth, because I always believe in growth.
So uh, I want you to ask that question again so that I can
Okay.
please ask it
So
again.
for our parents who are listening right now, they're
Mhm.
overwhelmed and discouraged, maybe. Maybe they didn't grow up with a great example. How can they, what's the first step they can do to become an equipped parent so that they can, grow as a parent?
Oh, well, the first thing is to get information.
Yes.
That's the most empowering thing that anyone can do whenever they're in a situation, any situation that in which they feel overwhelmed, is to get information, because that means that there's other information out here that can help us to do things easier, or that can help us point us in the right direction about the things that we need. Because on that continuum of feeling, so if you're feeling overwhelmed or tired and that kind of thing, and you get to feeling too overwhelmed and too tired, then a lot of times you're not good, meaning you're not able to do act in your best interest and that kind of thing. But past too overwhelmed is overwhelmed enough.
Mm.
Past too tired is tired enough to do something different, to get more information, to ask for help. And if you're there, then we're here. There's a plethora of resources here with Successful Black Parenting magazine. There is books out like mine, Are These Really My Kids? It allows you to create your parenting plan and approach parenting in a more proactive and planned manner. Black parents are coming together all over the place,
Yes, we
and,
are.
and it's a beautiful thing. We see the value in us coming together, and what this opportunity affords with Successful Black Parenting, it allows us an opportunity for us to raise our children together
Mhm.
on purpose.
Absolutely. And, we have, it's in my email signature. No one should have to parent alone. And when I say alone, you can be married and still be parenting alone. No one should have to do that. So we're here for you. We're here for you. So all you got to do is tap into it and say you want it, right? So I'm glad you said that. Now, where can our listeners find your work, buy your book, and get the manual, or just connect with your workshops even? Tell us where we can find you.
I should say that I'm currently in St. Louis, Missouri, but I am more than willing to travel. I would love to travel to meet with a parent group, to take them through a workshop. I don't generally do one-on-one parenting, coaching, and that kind of thing. And the reason why I don't is because I believe parenting to be a community thing. It's really a group thing. And there's so much more value that we get when we go through these exercises and discussions as a group. It's so much more full and filling, and it actually strengthens our relationships. It strengthens our community ties when we do them as a group.
Okay. No, I agree with that. There's something healing in the camaraderie and knowing that you're not alone in what you're experiencing with the group. I do got to say, I do parent coaching 1-on-1 online. So you guys, if you can't get to a group, I'm also here for you. So you have options. Look at that. Options.
That's right. That's right. You got options. So what I did was, I posted the link. I put it in the chat, the link for the book,
Gotcha.
and I put in my email address and also the website address.
Fantastic. So what I will do is I'm going to copy that and put it in below the video. Once it's going to run on Spotify. This video will be on every podcast platform. So you can find us everywhere, guys, from Apple to Google to Spotify, on anything, anywhere. Just look up Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting. Well, Bolanle, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show today. Yeah, I could talk to you forever.
Thank you. I feel the same way, and we're going to have to spend some time. Got to have to appoint some time so I can come see you. And
All right. You're going to come to Atlanta?
I will be
there.
Atlanta. I will be there.
All right. Just let me know. We'll go have coffee, go see some sights or something. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you again. And I want to thank all of you for coming on the show. A big shout out to everyone who's watching the replay. You keep us going. And I want you to follow us. It's so important that you follow us on social media. We got to get our numbers up, guys. We really are unique, but what we need is everyone to go on everything from Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. Go follow us there, because every time you do, it helps us. Just think of it giving us a breath of life to keep going. It really does matter. So click on everything, follows, likes, ads. And until next time, I wish you all the best and much success. Thank you all for listening. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We'll see you soon.